Hi, and welcome to Class 16 of Science Fiction Filmmaking 101. In this class, I'm going to talk about legals and paperwork. Yeah, this isn't very exciting visually, and you're probably thinking, why is this part of a series about science fiction filmmaking? Well, the simple answer to that is no matter how hard you've worked on this amazing and groundbreaking science fiction film of yours, if you don't have the right paperwork and legals when submitting your film for distribution, then your film won't get released and no one's going to ever see it. So it's best to get all of this done in a timely fashion and not leave it till the end or when someone asks you. Also, please note that all examples showed here in this class are merely for the purpose of this training, and you should have your own lawyers and legal rep provide the latest paperwork for your project. Hence why you should always have a budget line item for things like legals. The first thing you need before shooting on any location is that your production company has insurance. This is often called public liability insurance. This is to ensure you are covered for any type of accidents or damage which could occur on a film shoot. This is always required whenever you're talking to camera rental companies, locations and stage rentals, etc., and is actually part of the risk assessment process you have to do when talking to people who run the location you want to shoot at. Here is what the risk assessment form looks like, and it's actually very important that all the information is laid out as clear as possible, since the people evaluating and assessing this are usually building managers or government officials who you need permissions from to shoot at public locations, and even private locations too. Sometimes including pages from the script to reference the notes specified in the hazard section really helps. So when filling this in, it's always best to have the director, the first AD and cinematographer along with the producers and line producers present to ensure everyone's on the same page with the information inputted here. This will ensure your applications are signed off quicker. Whilst we're talking about locations, it's important to also have all location agreements drawn up and negotiations on all agreed rates locked down, so that you can budget for that accordingly, but more importantly, knowing that you're shooting at a location that you have permission for. So take a moment to look at this as I scroll through it. There's quite a bit of legal jargon in here, by the way, so feel free to pause the video at any point to read closely. And again, this is merely for reference purposes, and you should really consult with your own legal team or lawyer to get something drawn up for your projects. The other key paperwork required before shooting starts is the actor's agreement. Now, this is the kind of paperwork that goes back and forth quite a bit between the producers and the talent agents, so it's best to get this sorted way in advance of a shoot to prevent any hold-up. Now, sometimes on a low-budget movie, the actors would just agree to do it because they love the script, they want to work with the director, and it's kind of like a passion project. And the main point of negotiations is usually the actor's fee and to ensure that their expenses and travel are covered. But on a lot of these independent films, depending on how big the actor's profile is, their agents will negotiate a back-end deal for the actors and get percentage of the net profit from the sales of the film. Or, the other option, or both, is they get an executive producer credit, which also has a percentage of net profit attached. So this is what I mean about the actors' agreement going back and forth and will require a lot of negotiating time. The other thing also worth mentioning is that the contracts will be subject to whatever country's union laws are applicable. So like, for example, in the US, you've got several guilds and unions. So obviously those things will be factored into these letter of engagements and agreements. When you've finished your movie and you're getting ready to send it to distribution, the thing you want to ensure you have done way in advance, preferably during the early stages of deal making, is your heads of terms and the chain of title. If you leave this till the end, it could get messy and unnecessary legal costs may be required. Here is a closer look at the chain of title, which is a simple sheet that states who has ownership of the IP being intellectual property. Now, here's an example of me owning the rights of my first feature film, The Beyond, where I was the sole owner of the intellectual property. But if you are a writer, that has had your script optioned, which is what happened on my second movie, Origin Unknown, which was optioned by a production company, then there'll be an option agreement where you pretty much sign the IP over to the production company, and they would pay you for a fee for that, of course, but they will own the rights to the IP. This, of course, is all subject to negotiations between the writer's rep and the production company's lawyer and producers. Here is a closer look at the heads of terms. This one's much more detailed and usually has a lot of going back and forth between producers and lawyers. So here on the first page, it clearly states who the main producers are. And on the second page, it clearly states who the owner of the IP is. Kind of similar to the chain of title, but it's reiterated here for legal purposes. The next page is the one that probably has the most discussions and is usually handled strictly by the legal reps to avoid any friction between all the producers involved. And this is to do with the net profits and how it's shared out between all producers legally entitled. Now, what you're seeing here is for the Beyond, where I was the owner and lead producer, making me have the lion's share of the net profits. But hey, every movie is different, and you should definitely sort all this out way in advance during the contract stage. This page states how the amount of the net profits will be collected and paid out. This is usually via a collection agency, but in the case of the Beyond, due to the small pool of producers, I ended up handling that myself. The other section of that page deals with the credits, in which order each name would come up on screen. You'll be surprised how a tiny thing like how many pixels high one producer's credit should be in comparison with the others can actually affect the graphics team in post-production when handling the credit sequence and the title cards. So it's always best to have the credits locked off as soon as you can before post-production or the credit sequence begins work. The other big insurance you need to have in order to distribute your movie is the errors and omission insurance, known as the E&O insurance. This is pretty much to protect the producers and the film if legal cases is taken against the film for any kind of infringement that may occur. Hopefully, as a filmmaker, you would go to lengths to ensure you have all the rights material in your film and you have everything cleared in the first place with paperwork backing this up. The other big legal paperwork you need to get done as part of the submission to the distribution company is the certificate of origin and nationality of the film, which also legally states who holds all the rights of the feature film, such as the theatrical rights, home entertainment, video on demand rights, pretty much everything in the universe of the feature film IP. Now, this needs to be done by a lawyer who will also need to notarize it with a seal of approval stamp to really make it legal. And you'll be given a unique notary protocol number at the bottom of that certificate too, so that you can scan the document and send it to the distributor as part of your package. You also need to get the script and physical copy of the film copyrighted by the US Copyright Office too, so that you are protected by the laws in the United States. Now, of course, I have only covered the core essential legal documents you need to provide, but there is, of course, a list that the distributor will provide to you, just like this one, which will outline exactly every single deliverable items, physical and paperwork you need to deliver. These additional things include things like a dialogue continuity report, which is usually done by an external script editor person that you hire in, and the music cue sheet, which is provided by the sound composers who created the soundtrack to the film. Lastly, here is a screenshot of the deliverables hard drive for the Beyond feature film, which gives you a clear idea and a sneak peek of what you will need to submit on a hard drive to the distributor along with all of your paperwork.